Hello and welcome to a new episode of Talking Snooker with Phil Haig and Nick Metcalf. Once again, talking about the game we all love.
We are, and finally, no more talk of business ends and things on the horizon. We're in the World Championship. It's begun. It's that time of year.
It is, said many times, Phil, it's like Christmas. You know my view, it's miles better than Christmas. I mean, Christmas has got a few things, you know, feature length gathering and stay. You see good TV from time to time, quality street on the sofa, but it hasn't got 17 magical days and nights at the Crucible. We know that's unbeatable, unrivaled, and it's all coming our way, isn't it? World qualifying underway. So this is a magical time of year to be a snooker fan. And we've just seen a very special event, haven't we? That's where we'll start with the Tour Championship. John Higgins, talk about not being able to keep a good man down, fell out of the top 16 early in the season. We really thought, back of our mind, can he win something again? Well, he won that ranking event a few weeks ago, of course, and now a really massive win for him, beating Mark Selby 10-8 in the final. He's saying his best ever win. He says it, we've got to take him at his face value for that. I guess some other people say things in the heat that are not quite what they think, but he seemed to be pretty sure about it. One thing's for sure, it's a marvellous win.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's hard to put things above World Championship titles, but there are good reasons for it. His stage of his career when he thought, when he dropped out of the top 16 for the first time in a millennium earlier this season. Um, the idea that he was going to be winning one of the biggest tournaments of the season in such style against Mark Selby in the final, it wasn't fanciful, but it seemed a way off. So that's, in that context, it's certainly one of his best wins. And if he thinks it's his best, as you say, who's to argue with him? Certainly, he won't have won it with such an impressive burst from such an unlikely position. He wouldn't have won many finals like that before. It was so good.
It really was, wasn't it? I mean, such a sort of unusual final, really. Had that big lead earlier on 5-1, breaks to 68, 102 and 102. Then Selby got back to 5-3 end of the session. It's obviously anybody's then. But then what a start from Selby that night. My goodness, it just seemed like, he may have broken the back of it. Breaks of 112, 136, 68, 55, 77 and 119. So just a really, golden period in the match for him. But it wasn't enough, was it? It was 8-5. And then Higgins, I mean, it's just brilliance, really. Breaks of 110, 67, 80, and a 132 to clinch it. And as people are saying, he did get a little bits of luck here and there, probably got more of the run, but boy, did he take advantage of it. I mean, Mark Selby looked absolutely shell shocked, I thought. He just like, wow, bang, 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 I've lost the title. I thought I had this one, but you've got to give credit to John and Phil. So much of this sport is psychology. Had this happened before he won that tournament some weeks ago, I'd have thought, even at 9-8 up, oh God, I can't watch. I'm behind the sofa. This time I thought, he'll probably do it. When he's in the balls, he'll probably do it. That's how quickly and profoundly, in a way, psychology can turn around. Higgins looked like a man that couldn't really finish the job. Now I'm back in to finish the job again, and maybe quite often, eh?
Yeah, definitely. It's crazy how that's happened. And you look back at that tournament in Yushan, and no disrespect to the players that he beat, but he just got over the line against Zach Shorty in the semi final. Could have easily have lost that. Then he
Yeah.
beat Joe O'Connor in the final, where Joe didn't play as well as he had done the rest of the week. And you would expect John Higgins to beat Zach Shorty and Joe O'Connor, and he did. But just in those matches, just at the right time, it just turned everything around. I mean, imagine if he'd lost that semi-final to Zach, which it looked like he was going to. How different now would be. It was just like stark contrast. But he got those wins when it mattered. It didn't. It turned out it didn't matter who they were against, but because it just the fact he got them to some silverware, or also sorry, some sort of pottery as it was at the time. But he got his hands on it, and he's just he's back up to number three in the world and
Yeah.
playing like someone who is ranked there. Um, yeah, a completely different animal, and I mean I think there's probably, and I'm guilty of it, probably too much talk of what this means for the World Championship during the Tour Championship because it's such a massive tournament in its own right. But there's no doubt that he's become one of the favourites for the Crucible after what's happened in the last couple of months.
I agree with that, really. I see quite a few people respond when I said that a couple of times that I don't think he can do it now over a 17-day period. And I take that on board. He's about to turn 50. But it hasn't seen much of a barrier. If you say you're guilty of that, one thing I'm guilty of, I think we all are to some extent, is bracketing them all in together. Now we like to keep them separate. They couldn't be more different as people. But I love it in the sense that you say number three in the world, you're quite right. Neil Fold said to him on television, "You're top of that class again." He's been third in the class. He's been gazing up at the other two, no question. Yeah, he's been getting to finals, but he's been missing out on them really. And ultimately, when you get to those incredible levels, it's not about getting to finals. It's about silverware. Mark Williams has been picking it up. Ronnie's been picking them up big time, which is kind of forgotten about Ronnie now. He's had such a funny season. He won the Masters in UK last season, you know. He's still, doing very well when he is playing. Mark Williams winning so big, won the Tour last year. I mean, of course, Williams won it last year. And I haven't put that together till now properly. That's crazy in itself.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just amazing. And he said in response to Neil Foles, yeah, we kind of just push each other on. And they don't always like to admit that, I think, but maybe they can admit it when they're feeling better about themselves. But I think they do. And it's just, he's looking different. And he's sounding different. He's still got that humble thing that's part of the Higgins makeup. But yeah, I mean, for Selby, of course, the flip side of the coin, a lot of people tipping him for the World Championship. Very correctly, in my view, he's one of the big contenders. And sometimes we say not winning the Tour is good. We may look back on it in a few weeks and say, oh, well, maybe that was it. But it will be a shock because I can't think of many times when he's been blitzed like that. We talk about the master of brinkmanship, but to have it done to him, it will hurt him. It'll quickly bounce back. But maybe that, in a way, like you already said about the circumstances, maybe that's part of the best ever win thing. He's not doing it against a guy that's maybe not quite at the very top level, but still very good. He's done it against Selby there. That must add to the luster of what he's done.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, well, it was Mark Williams that beat Selby in the British Open final, wasn't it? When was that? A couple of years ago. And I think Mark said that was his best ever win at the time. And I
Oh,
think he's
yeah.
probably said other things of him, his best ever win since. I think he said the tour last year was his best since then. But these guys respect Mark Selby so much, as they should, and they all respect each other. But everyone knows that beating Mark Selby in a big final over distance is extremely difficult. And so, yeah, these guys know to do it in their late 40s and nearly 50. It's an incredibly impressive achievement. How much it will hurt Selby is interesting. Yeah, I mean, I guess he will just think he didn't do much wrong. He'll look at the little bits of luck that John got and just how well he played, and I'm sure he'll write it off pretty quick because there's some good stuff to look at. He absolutely thrashed two unbelievably good players
Yeah.
in the two rounds before, and was very, very good in the final. 4 tons himself. So I don't think he'll be too down. I think he'll be feeling very good about his game in general going to the Sheffield. And yeah, I mean, there's definitely been years ahead of the Worlds where we've said this is the most open one yet. And really, it's probably the same amount of people that can win it realistically each year. But this year seems more than ever that a lot of them are really in impressive form and have such a strong argument to win it. You can always make an argument for these top players to win it, but there seems more than most times that they've got genuinely incredibly persuasive arguments. So that final and that week really helped with all that situation.
Yeah, no, really good way of saying it. And really good week overall. Let's go through it. I mean, first round we were on the air for that Barry Hawkins 10, Sean Murphy 1. 5 centuries from Hawkins, really stunning performance. But really, it set the tone, didn't it? We had loads of one-sided matches in the week, really. Too many, really. I mean, it's still a very good tournament, but just I was going through it again while preparing for this. I thought, God, that was a lot. One of those wasn't Zhao Guidong. Wu Yiza, that was 10-8 to Zhao. Wu Yiza 8-7 up in that one, actually. Breaks of 60 and 63, helping Zhao to the line. Zhao, my selection, by the way, for the one that might go under the radar at the World Championship. We'll see. I mean, he's been sort of metronomic in a way, consistency wise. You look at those, charts of all the numbers and the colours. You think, yeah, he's getting deep, deep so often. Ding Junhui 10, Mark Williams 3. I mean, Mark's sort of not really ending. He doesn't want to be in these issues at any time, but ending the season not how he wants it with the issues over his eyesight. But very strong from Ding scoring wise, 2 centuries, 6 half centuries. And then Mark Selby 10, C Dry He 6, a 128 and a 136 in there from Selby. So maybe a word from you on those. Yeah, interesting selection of matches. But yeah, the trend of the tournament, we've seen with two there already. Early finishes. And I guess, I've certainly been one to say that the 8-player thing had a sort of gravitas that maybe the 12 doesn't. But listen, people will say the other side. Well, it helps to plug those gaps now. If there's early nights, it gives the public more snooker. So that's one to take on board as well.
Yeah, that is definitely a plus side, isn't it? Because there would have been some very early nights of people who bought evening session tickets. Yeah, I still prefer the 8, but yeah, that is definitely a positive to this. Yeah, I mean Ding Williams games was weird. This Ding started awful, um, and it was level early on, wasn't it? I think it's 3-3. It was 2-2, 3-3, and then Ding just found his form and went wild. And Williams' issues with his eyesight he's spoken about, but Ding was really fantastic there. Um, Clicked in really because the previous two tournaments hadn't done much, then started slowly there, but found it, and then he continued it on the next game, which we'll get to. But yeah, I watched a lot of that Selby C game. Uh, See, he's a funny one, really. He's obviously some brilliance in there. I think he made a couple of centuries, and he's got that. He'll always have that. It's incredible, but some funny shot choices. Obviously he's going to be behind Selby in the tactics sides and the decision making, but there were some odd things there. Like, yeah, he hasn't really kicked on. Earlier in the season, he got those two big wins, didn't he? He knocked Judd out of one and Ronnie out of one, and I can't remember which one was which, but um, it maybe Wuhan and Saudi, but two
Mm.
big wins over those two, and he looked brilliant. And then of course he got to the final. Well, the final was in Wuhan, wasn't it? Where he lost to Zhao. But yeah, that looked like he was really making the steps, and he's not continued that in the second half of the season. Really, still a threat, still brilliant, but yeah, that game sort of showed how he's not quite continued to progress.
I think that's right, really. I still sort of flirted with him as quite a serious tip for Sheffield because, of course, he had that great run in 23, beat Mark Williams there last year. But you're right. There are times you sort of think you haven't quite got the sort of that naivety you get from young players quite out of his system yet. Quarterfinals, Barry Hawkins. I was up there for this actually. We'll talk about our respective trips in a while, I'm sure. Barry Hawkins 10, Judd Trump 5. I mean, classic Barry when I saw him playing it all down, all not sure, full of humility, but a very good win. Trump a bit off his top level, but listen, he still had good runs lately. 1 century and 6 half centuries from Hawkins. And a bit more rest for Judd. A bit more rest before Crucible can make all the difference as well. John Higgins 10, Zhao Gudong 3. 4 centuries from Higgins looking really good, as we know he went all the way to win it. Well, Mark Selby 10, Neil Robertson 1, another one-sided match between two heavyweights. 3 centuries and 5 half centuries from Selby. But we did then see Robertson, didn't we, come out and say, well, I might as well just say it verbatim. Quick one for me, guys. As last night, World Snooker didn't ask me for an interview, there were a lot more questions and answers my way this morning. On my way up to Manchester, had small symptoms of the virus my son had last week. First session scoreline could have happened even if I was 100%. It was a freak session where 4-4 would have been right. I played okay, but that night I never slept, and the symptoms got worse. I spent all day in bed, chugged some tablets down and finished the match. Thought about withdrawing, but not sure that would have been fair on Mark, who deserved to compete the match. Going to spend a day or two in bed and rest up for the Worlds. See you in a couple of weeks. We hope he's better and trust he will be for Sheffield. Big shame if he isn't. Had a bit of a history of being unwell during events, actually, Neil. That could be the family thing we know about children and schools and that old cliche, all very true. So listen, it's a shame, but obviously, Mark got himself a very, very comfortable win. As you mentioned, yeah, I mean, come to the next one as well. Selby dropped 3 frames in the quarters and semis of the Tour Championship, and that's just absolutely ludicrous. Dean Junhui at 10, Kyron Wilson 5. Dean was 8-1 up in that. I mean, barking mad if you think about just how brilliant Kyron's been all season. I think the smart money was always on Kyron, making it respectable. That's the kind of guy he is right now, and he did. He came back, but Dean got a very good 10-5 win. So, yeah, maybe back to you then. Shame about Neil. He seems to happen to him, perhaps more than his fair share, than he does to other players. But, well, no doubting Barry Hawkins again. I mean, beaten by brilliant performance coming up. But you talk about metronomic. That's the guy, isn't it? Deep and deep and deep, time and time again.
Yeah. It was good to see him follow up that because he was never going to keep quite at that level he produced against Murphy, but it was still very, very good against Trump. And I heard Sean on his podcast say that he was pleased to see that as well because the last thing you want to do is watch someone fly just out of their skin against you and then underperform in the next round. So, yeah, that was impressive. It was impressive by all those winners there. As you say, Neil was under the weather, but Selby was great. Ding sort of carried on that second half from Williams' game into the first half against Kyron, tailed off a little bit, but he'd got himself such a big lead, didn't matter. And yeah, John then was from his first game there was looking very, very good against Zhao. His scoring is massive. He got 4 tons in that game as well. I think it was a record amount of centuries in the tournament, actually. I think Higgins and Selby made loads, 11, I think, off the top of my head. But yeah, those quarterfinals were all very impressive. That was the round I was up there as well. So just on that Thursday, got to speak to John and Mark and Ding, who's always very interesting to speak to. So yeah, no, it was good. Maybe we could do that now. We talk our sort of impressions of
Mm.
the venue while we're on it. It's a great place. I've been last year. I thought that setup where the tables and everything backstage with everyone could play on was very good. There were a lot of people taking advantage of that when I popped in there and saw you. Yeah, the venue, the location of the venue is superb. So yeah, it's pretty much faultless, really. There'll be one or two detractions, I'm sure, but in general, can't fault it.
I mean, we're separate entertainers, aren't we? We're entertainers in our own right, but there's no question there's a double act element. I mean, quite a few play. It's quite nice when players say, isn't it? Good to see you two together at an event, all that sort of thing. But it was nice, it really was. I feel a bit like a year late with the news everyone else reported last year. I couldn't make it, but listen, I just had to add to it. It's brilliant. It's right in the city. It's that part of Manchester because I wishes I knew it exactly, but I still wanted to see it in its snooker context, and I did, and it was great. I'd say on a selfish level, first of all, when I said to you, God, it's really spread out. It's more difficult to get interviews than normal because in the end, I did get quite a few. But at first, I thought because I'm used to sort of like Ali Pally, York, and the Crucible mainly when I try and get stuff, which is they're like cocoons, aren't they? They're
Yeah.
so it's just wandering around. You can't miss people. But this was a bit more like say proper sounds a bit mean to the others, but it was such a big, huge place. Like ITV, for example, quite rightly all have all their different rooms, and they have a huge part of it, and so it's all just a bit bemusing. I found it at first, but really good. I mean, it just makes you feel great being in a city. I think we've had it for Sheffield. This is Manchester's a bigger city than that, and it's just a bit like the Berlin a couple of months ago that I went to. It just makes you feel great when you come out to a buzzing place. And of course, we had unseasonable weather. I mean, it was just so warm, lovely evenings, and people were just out eating, drinking, meeting their mates after work. I just loved it. I went to Manchester City when I was there as well, so I got the tram right across town, and just nice and busy. I have to say as well, I thought the Q Zone was great. Met you down there night one stage. We had a good old look. Loads of sort of miniature tables, like mini snooker, I suppose, on pool tables. Pool itself. There was games that WPBSA were putting on, and people, could do different challenges. Just dart snooker. I thought Barry Herman might try and get that on the telly. Couldn't quite work out the rules, but it looked quite fun. Players could have selfies and the mock up of the players' seats. There was loads. The only thing I thought is I'm still not totally convinced how people would know about that beyond our world. Now you might think, well, that should be enough, and I get that. And I think Manchester's a hard place to start putting paraphernalia up. I mean, it's a maybe do it near. Do you know what I mean? It's not quite
Yeah,
like a Newport, for example. That's Newport's a city in itself. I don't want to, insult Newport, but when I've been there, there's stuff on the train station, stuff in the shopping centre, a bit more obvious. But Manchester's sort of huge, so
yeah,
it's not exactly that easy to address, advertising. But yeah, I wasn't convinced. It's kind of tucked away a bit, even within the realms of the Manchester Central sort of complex, if you like. So yeah, I must admit, a bit anecdotal evidence and a bit what I saw, but also friends of mine saying they weren't convinced. I wouldn't mind seeing number. They weren't totally convinced there were that many people some days that didn't have tickets that went there, which is a
mm,
shame because it is free. I mean, I know ultimately we want people paying to go and see the snooker, but it is anything that get children, particularly young people, involved is good. And I wasn't convinced there was a tremendous amount of ways in which people would actually know that was happening. But listen, it was really good. Thanks to everyone that spoke to me for Radio Snooker. Some guy, Phil Hay, was quite good on there, I thought. But yeah, loads of great world weary face from you. Heard it all before. But Neil Folds, people like Michael McMullen, Phil Yates, loads of great voices from the ITV team. Ben Williams and Leo Scully and Stephen Hallworth. I loved that. You wouldn't mind tuning in. I mean, just on a pure snooker level, I found it fascinating insights. It's saying how he loves seeing Mark Davis in bits, because he didn't play very well in that match, but he said he felt like he broke Mark Davis, and I loved hearing that because I thought that's a real insight into how they think. But yeah, no, just really good. You're right. It feels like we're still singing from the same hymn sheet. You think, well, where are the downsides? We're supposed to be critics. There aren't many really. I would say I think the arena itself is it it's relatively sort of samey. I don't think it's about the arena. The arena's
mm.
nice, but I felt it's more about Manchester. That we always say it's either city or venue, rarely both. Maybe Crucible is the exception, but this one is about Manchester for me. Berlin's actually both, isn't it? But this would be a Manchester thing. Love being in a big city, and I'm sure you're the same. And even popping out for a sandwich or a quick drink makes you feel good, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I know he's saying about the arena. It's not. I don't think anyone's going to be like a huge fan of that building in particular. It's not a lovely theatre or anything. But it does a job. It's the right size. It's got not everywhere that we go to has the space to have all those tables and everything. For the fan zone, so it's perfect for the job. But yeah, it's Manchester itself is great. There's some great pubs around there. I drove from Sheffield and back. I don't know if anyone else listening might relate. The drive from Sheffield to Manchester is mad. It's not very far really, but there's just not a straight road among it. You're sort of whittling round country roads. It look like you're sort of taking a mountain pass at one point. So it takes longer than you'd like, but yeah, it's it's great. We've bigged it up a lot, and it deserves it. And it's there next year. We know. Hopefully, it'll be there beyond that. Hopefully, it'll just stay there now because it's found a nice home.
Definitely, just also some John Higgins material, which you might want to listen to on Radio Snooker as well. I know you were part of that press conference where I found it really interesting. He was likening it to some venues he knew from decades ago. He mentioned the Assembly
Mm.
Rooms in Derby. He had that. He said that the venue sort of reminded him. There was a sort of class about it. There's something sort of you can't ignore this tournament, if you know what I mean. You wouldn't anyway, it's a tour championship, but you can't sort of ignore what's going on. It's right in Manchester. It's just something, it's just got a big time feel about it, and that's great. Semi-finals, Phil, they certainly had a big time feel about those, and it was John Higgins 10, Barry Hawkins 7. Really good scoring, really good match. I mean, that would have been amazing had that been one-sided,
Mm.
the way they were playing. Big breaks and 144 from Higgins in there, 140 from Hawkins, and maybe that extra belief from Higgins. And actually, I watched the end of that, and I sort of thought that Higgins did just seem like he had that extra spring in his step, that confidence he's got at the moment. 2 or 3 months ago, Barry might have won that. It's just the way snooker is and the nature of sort of mentality and confidence. And then the other one, well, I didn't see too much of it, but I don't think I needed to because the story was pretty obvious, just very, very good. Consistent scoring throughout the match from Mark Selby. 10-2 win over Ding Junhui. When you consider how well Ding had played at times, that was really quite something, as I say, just conceding 3 frames in the quarters and semis, even despite Neil Robertson's illness. That is quite startling. And in the final, John Higgins 10, Mark Selby 8. So, yeah, really good conclusion. I often say, the last 3 matches are important. That's what the letdown in the last World Championship was really. But let's face it, one semi was very one-sided, but a great performance. One was very good, and the final was very good. So snooker fans always complain, Phil, but fewer complaints than usual, eh?
Yeah, for sure. I mean that was it. That was a really great final. Yeah, that Higgins Hawkins match was really good. Barry, I suppose it's not a criticism because he started on such a high. Can't really play much better than that Murphy game. I suppose he got gradually worse, maybe, but that's from such an enormous start. He was still good in that Higgins match. Higgins was just better. Yeah, Ding is just quite inconsistent, isn't he? I know he's won a tournament this year. Um, you would never rule him out because he's such a high quality player, but it's hard to see him winning that World Championship yet. Um, I'm not ruling it out in the future, but you can't see him sort of consistently playing well enough, even over a long session, long frame match. Really, never mind all that tournament, and that showed it here. He wasn't so good there, but Selby was excellent. And then, yeah, I think that's all you want in the final. Two people have almost certainly played very well to get there, and all you want them to do is keep up that form and play like that in the final. That's exactly what they did. Neither did anything wrong. One had to win, and it was Higgins. And look, he's not my tip for the World Championship, but I don't worry about whether he can sort of do it for 17 days at his age. That doesn't bother me. He's done it before, and he will with this level of confidence and form. Uh, it doesn't look like he's going to have a stinker of a session, and it looks like he's going to have some very good ones. So, yeah, I'm not tipping him to win it, but it'll take a very good performance to beat him.
Yeah, that would be more my concern, what you just said about the chucking in the bad session, because they do that more than they used to. But I don't think I'll be particularly bothered. I know the case, but about the nearly 50, but they're just sort of proving that not to be the case time and time again. I mean, Mark Williams goes deep that's been a bit unheralded, how deep Mark's gone 2 or 3 times lately.
Mm.
I mean, should have got to the final that year. He not should, but came so close, lost out the side. This is Judd, didn't he, when Judd got to the final against Ronnie? I mean, yeah, I mean, my concern would be he has maybe more bad sessions than he once did. But listen, he has to be among there, right? Right in the contenders. And well, we got a fascinating tournament to look forward to, haven't we, Phil? Just over a week away now. We've got qualifiers to come. But let's now just wrap up the tour and say, good event. It just delivers. It's never been as good as 2019, and that's fine. I would sort of argue it's never nearly been as good in some ways, in the sense that all week that week was unbelievable matches, and it just hasn't been since then. But that's fine. That was the high watermark, happened to be the first one. That's the way I'd look at it. But it's still very good. Lots of good matches, good final. As good judges have said to me so many times over the years, and I've actually seen it, happen even in recent times. You get a tournament that it can be a bit. This wasn't half baked. That wouldn't be right. But some tournaments are half baked. You get a great final. People forget that. Oh, it was a
Mm.
brilliant tournament. Well, it wasn't. It was a brilliant final. But anyway, I'm waffling a bit. No difference there. Really good. Thanks to the organisers. Very good coverage on television. Phil, got to say, those musical choice. I had a bit of fun about that. Yeah, bit of Deacon Blue, bit of Quo. I missed the Quo. A bit annoyed. But yeah, loads of songs from back in my beloved 80s, and other sort of nice hits as well from different eras. So that was good. And yeah, really, really sort of nice, sort of passionate team. Love their snooker. That always comes through. As you said, you watched a fair bit on the ITVX. We know Michael McMullen, who was on Radio Snooker, was part of that team with Joe Perry and Stephen Hall. So yeah, just and a number of hours. I know I said bit of a parrot in the same night as I did during the Players. We talk about. I know there are issues with TV coverage now and different things, but the number of hours ITV were on air. I was thinking, oh, other sports would kill for that. Other anything would kill for that. I mean,
Mm.
what sort of what anything in life has as many hours as that? I mean, I'd like you to tell me. It's just like day after day. We are spoiled in lots of ways, eh?
Yeah, no, it's superb, and with those two table options, ITVX doesn't seem to get much better in many other ways, but it does
Oh yeah,
when you're sat watching it, it's fine. And yeah, Michael's great on there with Joe and Stephen. So yeah, no, another great tournament. And I think not that everything has to be about Ronnie O'Sullivan, but that's the point. I don't think we've been sort of sat watching tournaments in the second half of this season thinking, oh. Ronnie O'Sullivan's not here. It's no good. These tournaments are still really good without him, which is encouraging because we don't know when he's going to be playing, or how much he's going to be playing in the future. But uh, we can watch a snooker tournament and enjoy the lot of it, and without him, and that's encouraging.
really good point, Phil. I wrote a column recently saying that Ronnie's unbelievable genius. I miss him massively, but I think snooker will be fine without him. And it's actually gone beyond that a little bit now. It's not even me or anyone else saying I think snooker, but snooker is fine without him. He's not playing now. I know it's only a few months of evidence, but that's still a few months. And you're right. The tournaments are doing well. I'm not seeing any. No, yes, there's a Ronnie tax or Ronnie premium, if you like, when he plays in finals, more watch, but loads watch anyway. I'm not seeing any viewing figures for ITV, but annoyed. I quite like to sometime. But no, really, yeah, the ITVX is awful streaming service. I mean, that's nothing to do with the snooker guys. I heard a couple of voices in the press room say it's the worst. It is the worst, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, the big iPlayer will be such a pleasure to watch. And BBC have got a lot more money, of course. They're spoiled in that way, but yeah, the ITV is the lack of functionality is extraordinary in this day and age. I mean, you can't do anything on it. I don't think. But anyway, never mind. That's a downbeat note to finish on. I don't mean to. Great coverage overall from the ITV snooker team, and a very good tournament, wasn't it? Final word from you, perhaps. Really enjoyable.
Yeah, no, that's it. Very enjoyable.
Good way of
That's the
saying
final
it.
word.
That is the final word. Let's move on and say you are listening here to the Talking Snooker podcast with Phil Haig and Nick Metcalf. But I'm going to use those words clammy tension again. Not not a great turn of phrase, I accept, but I think it's accurate. I think it's accurate. We're seeing it already at World Qualify. We've got to come to Jimmy White and Anton Kazakov shortly. I mean, that was extraordinary. I know we both stayed up. By the way, you never replied to my one word, purgatory, on the.
I only saw that in the morning. I wasn't actually looking at my phone. I had my laptop on. So, yeah. But yeah, I know exactly what he meant, though.
Ludicrous. 12:57 a.m. I sent Phil Haig one word, purgatory. Now, if you actually look up, then I looked up purgatory and I thought it's not really the right description. It's a state of temporary punishment for those who die in God's grace, but still imperfectly purified, allowing them to achieve the necessary holiness to enter heaven. I mean, I know some of those safety exchanges went on a long time, but that's a bit over the top if you actually, analyse it deeply. Anyway, we'll come to that in a moment. Zhao Xintong, he's in form, say the least. That's an understatement. Beat Tren Kuai 10-3, breaks of 128, 122, 77, 84, 90, 98, 132, 57, 141. Sound like a bingo caller. These are actual snooker scores. Amazing stuff from him, obviously, making his first tentative steps back into the game, as we know, after his recent ban. Valiant effort indeed from 14-year-old Mikhail Subarzik. Recently won himself a tour card. He pushed Dean Young all the way as he went down to a 10-8 defeat. Thanks, by the way, to you for spotting that line in Poland. Very interesting. It might be expense and not age. That means he doesn't take up his tour card, certainly straight away. And then, wow, that Jimmy White match. I mean, goodness me. There was some good stuff in it at times. Jimmy made a 120 on look really good. He made a few other breaks. There was some awful stuff as well. I mean, my goodness. I mean, there's no point sugarcoating it. Philip Sub made a good point in commentary. He said the first session went on till about 2:30 or 3:00, about 2:30, I think. And that was with Jimmy the 3 miss rule. So one frame was over virtually straight away. And we went on and on and on. I think you and others have timed it as 1:22 a.m. I mean, my goodness. I mean, Jimmy was a long way behind, then came back to lead 9-7. Kazakov sort of fought back to 9-9. And it was just, I shouldn't really be a bit honest, really. There's times that I thought, this is a bit of a clanger staying up for this, really, because I'm a bit tired. This is just going on and on, but it's like Agatha Christie, like Barry Hearn always says. You've got to find out who done it, Phil Hay. Um, I do quite like it at times. The concept is like, oh, lots of appreciation here for these two. It's like a one random clap. But there were a few hardy souls in there, it has to
Yeah.
be said. There really was. But I'll go back to you. Have a word about Jimmy and Cassidy. We could talk all night. We don't want to. We want to make it a relatively, tight knit episode. But that was something else, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I was impressed by how many people were still there. It was a decent number.
Oh,
But yeah, I felt for Joe Johnson on commentary. Jimmy White at 62, that's late for him. Joe Johnson's 72, that's very late.
is he
Um,
72, Joe? Bloody
yeah,
hell!
yeah. And to be fair, this is a rare sort of going back to last week's episode because when I was watching I thought something like this. You mentioned family tension. I'd look back at last week's episode. It's right near the end. And this is what I said. Many, many nights for the qualifiers. I think I'll be early to bed tonight. And then you find yourself at 1 o'clock watching some real edgy stuff. Neither of them are going to get to the Crucible because it's the first round and it's real low quality, but you can't turn it off once you've started. And there it was, the second night. Exactly that happened. So yeah, it's just that's the thing, isn't it? Probably got to midnight, and I thought I really need to go to bed here. But once you've that far in, you're not turning it off. And it was very exciting to be fair. They decided
It
Jimmy obviously
was.
made
It
that half
was.
century, and it looked like he was going to throw it away. But yeah, there was some good stuff in there. It was mostly
Mm.
poor. I have watched Kazakov a few times actually because he got on tour a while ago, and he doesn't often look like and he's going to do much really, but he's quite sort of steady. It was tough watching a lot of it, but fair play to Jimmy, especially after that frame loss and the three miss. I couldn't believe what he'd
Mm.
played, and it was a really unnecessarily difficult shot that he tried when he just had to hit something. But there were some head-on times for both of them during that match. But yeah, still winning games at 62 years old. It is impressive. And to be managed to slog it away to that hour, deserves a lot of credit. Yeah, Xintong. I think Xintong's been interesting having him in this round because I've watched a fair bit of other games and look, all these guys are good players, but he just looks just so many levels above the other people I've been watching in the first
Mm.
couple of games qualifiers. It's silly. I mean, Chun Kar Wei, I think he's actually quite a good player. He just didn't get to show very much of it at all because Sing Tong was kicking one visits almost every single frame. So it'd be interesting to see how he's challenged as he progresses through qualifying. But he's just going to get better and better, you would think. I think it's going to take someone to make it very sort of grim and grinding to slow him down. I'm not sure how he's going to be in that situation, but he does look very, very good. And yeah, we're not going to run through everything else, but some impressive wins. Mateusz Baranowski, a Polish guy who I didn't know loads about, but he had some good wins on the amateur circuit. He's mainly a coach, but obviously it's encouraging times with Kowalski doing all right and Sabarczyk do so well at 14 years old. So Baranowski also getting that 10-2 win over Sarkosh was impressive. Yeah, Stephen Holworth, friend of the podcast, 10-2 win over Wiltshire Revers was impressive, I thought.
Mm.
Back on tour next year, of course. And then I think the first decider of the tournament was Liam Graham beating Virgil Quinn 10-9. So some more edgy stuff there. I thought Boyko as well was very impressive. Back on tour again next season. 10-2 against Andrew Padgett and some great scoring from him. Um, and one more, I saw Oliver Lyons. He was 8-3 down to Mohammed Shahab,
Saw
which would have
that.
been an upset. But then he won 10-8. It was great scrapping. I mean, that we say all the time, but these best of 19s, um, seemingly huge leads can be overturned. And that was good stuff from Ollie, who plays Michael Holt next. So yeah, it's been interesting so far. I watched a bit of Bayou Lu. It's the last one I'll mention. Oh no, I won't mention two more. Against Liam Highfield. Liam played really well. Bai had some good spots, but Liam was great. 1-10-3. And Ken Doherty, who
Mm.
raced into a 9-0 lead against Hayden Pinney. He got over the line 10-3, playing with a new cue for the first time his whole career. He'd played with that same one that he bought for £2 or something 100 years ago. And now he's got a new one and he's loving it. And we actually, I think we were together, weren't we? We bumped into Stephen Holworth in Manchester
Yeah.
and they just had that practice game, which Stephen said he'd got the better of. But he noted how well Ken had been playing with his new cue. And he wasn't just bigging up the darling of Dublin. It looks like he's playing very well, which is lovely to see.
I wonder if you're going to mention that. Well, I thought, knowing you, you'll remember that. Yeah, I remember you saying nice little nugget. He was really impressed by Ken, yeah. And he's showing that. Hall's got Hamilton now, isn't he?
Yes,
Are you still planning to go?
Friday. Yeah, yeah, Friday evening. I'm going to pop in.
Friday night, good stuff. And let's get the video printer out. You know how much I like that. The results have come through then on this, what are we now, Wednesday night. We are late, by the way. Sorry, I've been in Vienna. And I sent a little video over, and the way I described it to you, Phil, if you remember, was um, it's obviously pure partridge. It's naff, but somehow I think it's quite good, which probably could describe pretty much all my outputs. It's about 1998. Hugely naive for me to think it's quite good. But anyway, Wang Yuchen's won against Brian Chinney 10-5. And Gao Yang has also claimed victory over Liam Pullen 10-5. Ian Burns has claimed a 10-4 win over Mink Nutrawat. And Andrew Higginson, it's not a bad little match. Andrew Higginson beating Ryan Thomason 10-7. Let's see if any more are near the end. Well, we could have a bit of late night play here still to come, because it's Simon Blackwell 8-6 up over Mustafa Dorgum. And it's Dwayne Jones 8, Florian Nuzler 7. I know that that'll be a match that a lot of our friends in mainland Europe will take particular interest in watching. I know many of them said they're doing so. So there's still some life in that. All the scores, I am looking at snooker.org. That's a great place, of course, to follow all the scores and results from events, as you also can from the WST website. I know there have been issues about watching, and I have to say, loads of Irish friends of mine, Irish colleagues, people on the scene that I know, people that I don't even know that well, but I see them on forums and know the names. They have said there are issues. I understand that those that are watching via Sky in Ireland are saying they're fine. They can press the red button there. But I know there is an issue, frankly. I mean, for want of a better phrase, I'll say it's sort of falling between various different stools. They can't get Discovery there properly in Ireland where to watch it. And the Max service, which I think is the new service that's being launched by TNT, isn't available yet. So it's been disappointing. But I have to say as well, I'm sure these things aren't really allowed, but there are various ways to watch it. I've even seen people say there are streams on YouTube. That's right. I get a TNT login through work, so watch Jimmy through that. As you say, others have said commentary from the start has been really kind of, a nice little addition. But I know there have been issues, and, we are sorry to hear that. But I think most of them are generally okay. The Ireland one has sort of stuck out a bit. But listen, I suppose the flip side to say is, obviously, we mustn't always hark back to the past, but it's kind of amazing that we're seeing qualifying at all. In the past, we never would have done. We only would have seen Judgement Day. There's full comprehensive coverage of that coming up next week, of course. And one line Philip Studd said, snooker and late night drama go together like Rogers and Astaire. Oh, that's one for the teenagers. And Philip, blimey. I'm not even sure even I go back that far. But anyway, great stuff. Enjoy your visit there. I know you'll be at Judgement Day. We'll review that when we're next on there, won't we? A lot of the heavyweights will sort of gradually come in, and then huge. Come this weekend, there's some huge names coming in, frankly. So, yeah, I mean, Xiao's in Tong's so ridiculous form so far. And it's hard to disagree with people saying he showed the form that could win the tournament. I mean, he is doing, but whether he can carry on. Think about that, you've got to carry on for 4 weeks. It's not just 17 days. 4 weeks is hard. I mean, we've had qualifiers do it. I mean, but Dean would have come in much later when he reached the final. To do it the whole 4 weeks is really hard. But yeah, he's certainly looking impressive form-wise, and that will continue then. Enjoy watching, won't you, World Championship qualifying. Any thoughts on it? Talking Snooker at yahoo.com or tweet us at Talking Snooker. Phil, had an update on the future host academy of the World Championship. This is copied from you at Metro. Talks are ongoing between World Snooker Tour, Sheffield City Council and Sheffield Theatres regarding the future of the World Championship at the Crucible, but no announcement is expected anytime soon. Positive talks are ongoing between WST and the stakeholders in Sheffield, but they have confirmed that no announcement on the event's future will be made before or during the upcoming World Championship, which gets underway at the Crucible on April 19. I won't read all the statement, but they do say Sheffield City Council, WST, and Sheffield Theatres are long-standing partners. Over the last 12 months, we've had constructive conversations with national government and key partners about the World Championship beyond 2027. Due to the sensitive and commercial nature of these discussions, no announcement will be made by the Council, Sheffield Theatres, or WST during this year's event. And I think it's an attempt, isn't it, to sort of paint a quite a rosy-ish picture. I think it's more positive than negative, obviously, but also to try and deflect a little bit of this talk, and maybe successfully. I mean, I haven't seen a great amount in recent days, which is relative. I mean, it's still over a week to go until the 17 days, if you like. But I thought to myself, I'm going to do an interview with Sporting Life in the coming days, and I'm personally going to veer off that a bit, I think, if I can. That's only one little thing. I'm only one journalist, but we don't want it to be dominated this year, do we, ideally? We're saying the same things over and over again a bit. That can't be avoided. I don't mean to be harsh on all of us, but that's an element of that. So I think this is an attempt to get on the front foot, isn't it? And say, look, you're not going to hear anything this year, but things are going okay. And maybe focus a bit more on the snooker this year, eh?
Yeah, I think so, and I think that will happen because nothing's changed really. I think them saying we've had positive talks, yeah, fine, but we sort of asked all the questions last year. I feel like I've asked every single player on tour whether they want the Crucible or not.
Yeah.
So it's just going to be rehashing stuff. But at the same time, I don't think this hasn't quelled any speculation at all because it hasn't really said anything really. It was really sort of um, it was quite an odd thing, I thought. Just saying there's no news really, so don't ask us. Which I understand that, but yeah, I mean, it won't stop the discussions going on because they haven't answered anything. But as you say, I think we sort of did it to death last year, so maybe that will naturally make it less prominent this time around. But yeah, it'd be nice. It would be nice to know a bit more. It would be nice to know like when we might get a decision, or when there must be a time when a decision has to be made, because we can't get that close to the end without knowing when the one after 2027 is. But yeah, it's good for the people who want it to stay in Sheffield that these talks sound like they're going well. The relationship is strong, and I think Sheffield are trying their best to come up with creative ideas to keep it here because they want to. But of course, sort of the ideas that have been floated of a, a new building and a bridge between them, and
Mm.
a new 2,500 seat stadium and stuff. They're just fanciful, so they're trying to come up with ways of getting around that. And it sounds like that's going well. So we'll see, but we're not going to find out. You know, I don't know when, but no time soon.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, I think I agree with the many, many good pundits that have said it's not really about Sheffield, is it? I don't mean that disrespectfully. Sheffield's a glorious city I've been going to for decades. I love it. Feel very at home there, but it's sort of about the Crucible, really. That's the sort of draw of that place. It's that arena that's so special. So, I wonder if people will wear it, or if there's, we'll see if there's really going to be like, oh, it's not going to be here, but there's this other building in Sheffield where it can be. I mean, that would be a hell of a thing if it is, or whether it'll just stay there. I mean, I tell you what, if it does stay there after all the talk about it, will virtually certainly go away at one time. It'll be, a hell of a line. Listen,
Yeah.
what I do think is there are more and more. I haven't done a poll. We're trying to stay away from it at the moment, but I do get the sense, just instinctually, that there are more people that are willing to move than there used to be, if that makes sense. I think 5 years ago it would have been like, oh no, definitely not, no way, huge majority. I just sense that there are more fans on the other sort of side, maybe the 50 years, but listen, I've got no evidence of that. It's more an instinctual thing. Ken Doherty was certainly on one side only, Phil, on ITV. And no matter how much money it makes for Barry Hearn, I want it to stay. But we'll await developments on that for sure. And
I do think them going to play those tournaments in Saudi has changed a couple of players' minds because the fact that no one's there for the vast majority of it, there's no atmosphere. Yeah, Mark Selby was very clear on this. I spoke to him in Manchester. He said, "I I would take the, I would take this money over doubling it to go to Saudi to stay at the Crucible." Um, which not everyone would agree with that, but and he's already a wealthy man. But the fact that they've gone and played some of these comps in Saudi, which has been touted as a possible venue. I don't know if how realistic that ever actually was or is, but that's what people suggested. But the reality of going and playing in front of one person is actually not that appealing to a lot of players when they've experienced it.
But of course, they weren't saying, "Oh, it's no one here and it's rubbish during it." Of course, they're saying how brilliant it was. But that's another thing. Desislava Bocilova has been named, Phil, as the referee for next month's World Championship final of the Crucible. Bocilova is set to officiate snooker's biggest match for the first time in her career. This is actually copied from Michael Day and information from Michael Day at Totally Snookered. She will become only the second woman in history to referee the World Championship final, following in the footsteps of trailblazer Michaela Tabb, who oversaw the 2009 and 2012 World Finals. Actually, on top of that, she'll become the first woman to referee all three Triple Crown finals, which is great. The 32-year-old Bulgarian said, "It is what I have worked towards for many years. It has been my dream. It will be different to any other final because of the atmosphere at the Crucible." Well, Desi, as pretty much everyone calls her in the game, is known as a brilliant referee, no question. Top referee now. You sort of like to think that they all get their turn, those ones that we know so well now. Most of them tend to, some of them have, some of the very best ones have had multiple finals reflecting their sort of next level qualities, I think. But listen, it's gone to Desi. We wish her well. It's wonderful for her. She's been exemplary for a number of years now on tour, and it'll just be the grandest stage. And I think everyone in snooker has to be delighted.
Yeah, very pleased for her. I mean, it's the big gig, and she deserves it. Been very, very good. Um, had that was on the wrong end of that sort of odd situation with Ronnie at the Crucible last year, wasn't she? So nice for her to get the plum draw this time round. So yeah, no, very, very pleased for her. I don't know her at all, but she seems lovely. So congratulations to her.
Indeed, Phil. And another line here on what is pretty news heavy edition actually of this podcast. We know that loads going on. Often it's before Sheffield, but maybe even more than usual. Chan Bing Yu is back on the World Snooker Tour after a match fixing ban, returning to the professional ranks thanks to winning the Asia Pacific Snooker Championship. This is a copy from you actually, Phil. Still just 22 years old, Chan Bing Ryan Thomason 6-1 in the final in Albury, Australia, to win a 2-year tour card. Chan Bing Yu was banned for 2 years after accepting charges of fixing a snooker match he played in, which was a 4-1 defeat to Jamie Jones in the 2022 British Open. This is going to happen, isn't it? We're seeing players that were banned. They all had different, some of them are banned forever. We'll never see them again. But it's going to be sort of gradual coming back. Listen, time's a healer. This is some of the fixed match. We know from all the circumstances at the time that one or two of the ringleaders that we all say were behind it were applying pressure to some of these guys. Let's take that on board to some extent, but did wrong. But I also believe in rehabilitation. He's back, and yeah, we'll see a lot more of him. And we've already mentioned Ryan Thomas. I think was that in World Qualifying, but yeah, that's a obviously a comfortable win there. And still so young. I mean, he's got years to come, so, a bit of a checkered start to the career, but lots of time to put that right on the table.
Yeah. I mean, that shows. I was sort of surprised when I saw that he was 22 still. Yeah, it shows how young he was when that situation happened. He was one or one of them, but probably the main one that was sort of really pushed into it, almost threatened into it. And yes, he threw a match, and he's been found guilty of that. But the circumstances were extremely difficult for him, and I think it was quite right. He had a much lesser ban than some of the other people on there, and he's a class above in that tournament that he was playing in just there. Sort of strolled through that to get back on tour. So yeah, I mean, there's people who think that if you've been guilty of throwing a match, then you should never come back. I think each situation is specific, and he's been dealt with appropriately in my view. So yeah, he'll be back next season, and he didn't pull up too many trees in his first little spell on tour, but he was very young. He's clearly a very talented player, so I'm interested to see how he goes.
And if memory serves, he's one of those that had a band that was long but then cut short for being, but I think
Helpful,
cooperative.
yeah.
Yeah, helpful. Yeah, that's right. Let's move on, Phil, and here's some copy from David Caulfield now, another story that we've seen broken today on this Wednesday. David, of course, at Snooker HQ, friend of the podcast. The news is that Graham Dott has been suspended by the World Professional Billiards and Snooker Association. In a short statement released on the WPBSA website, the governing body said that it had suspended Dott, quote, due to a case which is scheduled to be heard before the High Court in Scotland. Whilst court proceedings are ongoing, it would be inappropriate for the WPBSA to make any further comment, the statement concluded. It is being reported by the Scottish Sun that Dott is facing 2 historical charges pertaining to the sexual abuse of children. Dott is a former world number 2 who reached 3 World Championship finals between 2004 and 2010, winning the title at the Crucible in 2006. And obviously, we must follow the WPBSA's lead and not comment any further on that as legal matters continue. But obviously, that's a major story concerning one of snooker's biggest names that's broken today on this Wednesday. Phil, we must, I think, go to any other business. A lot of snooker business there. Thanks for listening to Radio Snooker in increased numbers, creeping up slowly, I think. Top coverage. Hopefully you enjoyed in Manchester. Full coverage, certainly. Interviews with the likes of, I say, Leo Scullion, Michael McMullen, Phil Yates, Neil Fold. Loads of big names. Stephen Hallworth, which I loved. And also I've got a Sporting Life column coming for you next week on the Crucible curse. I'm not going to be complimentary, Phil. I'm going to make myself enormously unpopular with everybody, even my colleagues in the media, by saying it's a rubbish curse. It's time for me to take it to task. So I'll be doing that. And also I'll have an interview. Not sure who with yet, but I'm not brave enough to risk doing it with someone that can't qualify. So it will be with one of the 16 seeds. That's for sure. That'll come your way next week as we get ever closer to those 17 days. And for us, Phil, just to say, we'll be back, won't we, after the draw to look ahead to the first round of the Crucible and look back at Judgement days. And I'm not able to get there. And I always think, when, I live vicariously through you. I often do through Judgement Day. I mean, that is a magical, they're days plural. That is an extraordinary 2 days, isn't it? I mean, I find I'm a massive newsman and, news person, but I find that just thrilling in myself just to report on it. So many stories, so many dramas, and dreams coming true. Simple as that. Dreams coming true. People that never made it before, people that haven't been there for years, some established names getting back there. It's just we cannot wait. I mean, loads more days before that, but Judgment Day is a highlight of any season.
Yeah, definitely, and it's lovely to see the sort of procession of people coming into the little media garage there. Obviously, you see
Media
some people who've
garage.
been there a load of times, and it's still very special for them. But it's really nice when you see the debutantes beaming as they're sort of skipping through the EIS afterwards. Um, yeah, no, it's a brilliant. The whole of qualifying is fantastic, but climax is incredibly there. Um, so yeah, really looking forward to that. As I say, I'm going to pop along on Friday and watch a bit. Then I'll be working Judgment days, and then yeah, it's just then it's draw, then it's media day, then we're going. And yeah, on media day, we didn't mention that from the addition of the green carpet parade that's coming. That's going to be on the media day. They made quite a big deal about that. We'll see how spectacular that is. But at least they're trying stuff, so that'd be good. But yeah, no, plenty to look forward to. Um, and I suppose the only thing I'd add on that Graham Dott news is that his opponent will get a bye through. So that's Wang Yuchen who beat Brian Cheney tonight. He'll be through to the next stage where he plays Milkins. So yeah, we'll no more further comment on that. But technicality there in the draw. So good news for Wang there. So yeah, but no, lots of good stuff to look forward to on the table, of course.
Yeah, much to my chagrin, which I did make up for a bit for going to Manchester. Manchester was relatively last minute. I was on with the on. I can't make it to the early Sheffield part, but again, you'll be up there. I'm hoping to be there for week 2. But yeah, the green carpet. Every player getting a hug from Rob Walker, I've heard. I haven't heard that, but it'll probably happen, won't it? Let's be honest. We'll see. It's going to be good. Big event. All the stars, all the time, and yeah, it's a brilliant time of year. And I know I sort of say it, most years, but it's just the fact it's snooker's on. Forget everything else. It's just on. You
Yeah.
switch telly on the morning. Oh, snooker's on. Love it. Wake up, snooker again. Wonderful. I love all that. And a bit news from the BBC, of course. Not particularly, you know, overwhelmingly surprising news. Much the same pattern of last year. I've been eagerly awaiting the schedules to come out. They have for week 1. Lots of BBC 4 coverage live in the evening. And Hazel Irvine, Seema Jaswal, and Rishi Prasad will be the main presenting team. So brilliant team. And we look forward to some of the usual sort of faces and voices we come to love. Dennis Taylor and John Virgo very much together. I know people are asking me about that. I didn't see any reason why they wouldn't, and they are indeed both those two stalwarts. Been doing it for many decades. Will be part of the team as well. So loads to look forward to. Hell of a time of year for sport. We're talking about Arsenal, Real Madrid. I mean, that was like computer program stuff from Declan Rice, wasn't it? That wasn't real football. That was a computer game. Those 2 free kicks, unbelievable.
Yeah, I loved it. Yeah, no, that's most I enjoyed a game for a while, and I
Yeah.
had snooker on 2 other screens as well. So my attention was split, but it was very very good.
Yeah, I think football's left a little bit to be desired, really, in recent weeks, maybe even months. But that was exhilarating watch. The Grand National, of course, as well, won by Nick Rockett for Patrick Mullins and a very emotional Willie Mullins. And it's Masters Week, Augusta. The stage is set. On telly as well, Phil, by the way. I know we don't always do this, shades of our Christmas episodes we do with Dave. I have enjoyed the White Lotus. I mean, I know it's a lot in the news. Taking us all to Thailand every week. I really enjoyed that. That's come to an end. Now, when's the next of your series of concerts? That's got to be soon, isn't it?
No, that was I completed that with my
Oh, you
trip
did
to,
it.
to Brussels. Oasis in the summer. That's the next one, I think. Actually, I might be going to. There's one in June I want to go to in Huddersfield. So I might be driving to Huddersfield to watch a sort of doom metal band from America. But yeah, other than that, I've completed my lovely trio though.
Good man. Well, there's one thing I can't believe we haven't mentioned, really. We have mentioned him, of course. I can't believe there's many episodes of Talking Snooker or any snooker podcast over the years where you don't mention him, Ronnie O'Sullivan. He's in Saudi Arabia, and he made a bloody maximum in
Yeah.
about 6 or 7 minutes. I mean, so he can still play snooker then? He's still
Yeah,
okay.
and apparently I was listening to Jason Francis on the 147 podcast, and he said he didn't reveal anything major that we didn't know really, other than he seems to have a cue that he's happy with, which is one of the concerns.
Oh.
Um, so yeah, as I said a while ago, I stopped making predictions. I'm not going to, but yeah, we'll see. I mean, he told us, hasn't he? I think he will stick to what he said the other day that came out while we were in Manchester, wasn't it? He's
Yeah.
going to announce the day or two before the tournament starts. So I think we should probably just wait for that.
He's done all sorts of stuff, actually. Quite a lot of stuff with TNT, isn't he? With him and Jimmy White. Speaking to, I think, Darren Fletcher and Ali McCoy. So quite a lot of
Mm.
promotional stuff being done. Lots of interesting opinions from Ronnie and from Jimmy, by the way. Sorry, should have said. Good interview with you. Very interesting, actually. ADHD diagnosis from Jimmy. That is very serious, actually. And I think that will be important information for a lot of people there. And funny enough, I have to say, I have mentioned that to 2 or 3 people because I find that very interesting indeed. And a couple of wise people have said that they're not surprised and they think maybe, probably relatively prevalent throughout snooker,
Right.
players and fans. And I sort of know what they mean. There's something about that precision and that sort of focus on a sport like this that I think that makes a lot of sense. And also Jimmy with the old oxygen
Yeah.
intake, it seems to have been boosting him.
Yeah, that was interesting. I thought the ADHD diagnosis. I mean, speaking to him was a real treat. But I've spoken to other people before who've been sort of diagnosed with certain conditions, and it's like a huge weight off their shoulders because it feels like just like so much that they've never fully understood now makes sense, and that's exactly what it was like to Jimmy. he was absolutely buoyant, and I didn't even bring it up. He was telling me all about it. Um, he was saying about all these people he's met since, or people he knew from before, who now he understands it. He recognised it in them. So yeah, I mean, he was just buzzing, and it was really lovely to speak to him about it. And it was a sort of almost a new lease on life. I don't know how often people get diagnosed at that stage of their lives, but yeah, it was a massive plus for him. So very happy for him.
Well, waiting lists are enormous around the country, as I understand. The number of people, particularly adults of all sorts of ages, are looking to be assessed and for ADHD. So I found that really fascinating. Should say, of course, Jimmy part of the TNT mentioned BBC, but TNT very much will be on the air as well from the Crucible. No reason to think that Radzi Chinyanganyu, another friend of the podcast, won't be fronting the coverage, Phil. We'll go. I salute you and say thanks a lot, sir. Enjoy the qualifiers, and I'll see you on this podcast next week. When I don't know how you're going to describe it, because you love the old business end, business of business. How are you going to describe it when we're 1 or 2 days away? You've got to think up something.
I know I've got to retire that phrase. I think I said it too much, but yeah, really on the cusp. You're on the fringe, aren't you? By that point, but yeah, no, it's an exciting place to be. Looking forward to it, and we'll see some of you there, I'm sure, in Sheffield. But if not, hopefully you'll join us here. So thanks for listening as always.
Got to say thanks to Harris, and it's very nice. Thanks to Janet as well. We met some nice fans, didn't we? Met quite a few actually that came up to speak to us. That was lovely. Thank you very
Mm.
much for that. Always good to see you. See hopefully some more of you in Sheffield. And we'll say for now, hope you enjoyed the Tour Championship. Congratulations to John Higgins. Enjoy the rest of World Qualifying, and we'll see you next week after the World Championship draw. For now, from your old friends Phil Hagan, Nick Metcalf. Cheerio.